Let's go in, man. What's going on? Let's get this margin streaming. Now, this is very simple here, guys. And, we're just using KuCoin. I'm going to go in. I got some new trading exchanges we're going to try out besides this, but I'm just going to show you a simple method in what's called KuCoin, right? KuCoin. Now, very first thing you do is go over to, there's two types of trades here. We're going to focus on margins today. When you click on your margins, there's going to be a little box that pops up that asks you to click on a little box that says that you understand that you're going to be borrowing money, it's high risk, etc., etc. You just click the little box and then you will end up here. So now there are two types of margins, guys, and this is where I want to be very clear. The very first one's called cross margin, right, which is what I don't use, because cross margin is where, let's say we put $1,000 in here and you're margining out multiple coins. Your debt to ratio is actually combined into one section, and if one coin dumps for some reason or rug pulls, you will lose your entire account because of that one coin. So what you want to do is get to what's called isolated, right, which is simply clicking this little button here. And what that's going to do for you is that's just going to basically allow you to pick a very specific coin that you want to use, okay? And the way it's set up is that you just transfer USDT from your main account or your trading account right in here. So for instance, what we want to take a look at here is a coin called HBAR. Now, you just type in what coin you want to see here and it pulls up, right? Now at this point, to add money to HBAR, you would simply hit transfer or any coin that you're operating with, and you would decide where you're taking money from, right? Are you taking it from the trading account, the main account, etc.? And you can literally take from your main or your trading account and it would go right into HBAR, right? Now the thing about this is once that money goes into HBAR, you now have the ability to what's called borrow, okay? Now, very simple in margins, right? The reason why we use margins is so that we can increase our value of money, meaning that we make 5 times the amount of money in profit with margins than we do without, okay? Meaning that if you have $1,000 on a coin and it goes up 10%, you would make your $100. If you were using margins, you would have made $500, right? So an extra 400 bucks, right? That's kind of how margin works. It allows you to 5x all your profits, so that way you're making, you're gaining a lot faster. The issue is that, the problem with being able to make 5 times the money is that you can also lose your position 5 times faster because you're leveraging a 10x, which is 5 times, right? So what that means is if it goes up 10%, it really goes up, on a 10x, 10% would be 10 times that, which would be 100%, right? Half of that is fees or services that you're using to trade in and out. And so I just basically use a 10x and I cut it in half, right? Meaning that I'm going to take 50% of whatever it is to easily make sure that I'm hitting my goals and I'm not overextending my profits, right? Meaning that I know if it moves 10%, 10 times 10 is 100% movement, but half of that's actual realized profit, right? Meaning what I'm going to make. So also keep in mind, for every 1% it moves on a 10x, it's 1% equals 10%, right? So you get 10 times your movement. But it also means if it moves 1% down, you've lost 10% of your investment, on the downside. So the key to using margins is to have a good entry, good understanding of like what coin you're going to enter, a system or a structure, but more of a system that guarantees high yields and winning. And this is where we use our indicators on the 30-minute and the 1 hour to get into trades, and we use a very simple system to guarantee profits and a structure that will guarantee doubling your money every 2 weeks and literally compounding that profits into secure winnings, right? Meaning that we can show you how to take $1,000 and turn it into $100,000 in a year, okay? 1,000 to 100,000 in 12 months, right? You're not going to get a better system or structure based on that. Now, a lot of times, guys, it's not about just the indicators telling you when to get in, but it's nice to know you're not guessing with a bull flag, this type of flag, you know, all types of things, right? You don't need to learn 1,000 ways to trade. You just need to understand when your indicators are green, you're going in. And those are videos you can go watch. But now, let me just walk you through isolated. So let's say if you would have put $100 worth of USDT and transferred it over here, or 1,000, right? Because we like to operate on the 1,000 side. So let's say you put $1,000 into HBAR. When you come here, you would see here that you're borrowing USDT, right? This is borrowing USDT. And what that basically means is what this basically means right here is that you're going to be able to borrow this USDT. Okay. Now, if you guys are watching TikTok right now, if you're not able to see this, you'll be able to go to the link in my bio, and there's going to be links to this on the tube, on Elon Musk, the Bluebird. You guys can go watch the whole video. It's actually being streamed right now on my Twitter and my YouTube, so you can go back and watch the videos. But this is borrowing USDT, okay? So borrowing USDT. So if we had $1,000 in here, we would be able to go 10 times our USDT, which means our 1,000 would be worth 10,000, right? So margins is where KuCoin or the exchanges lend you the difference of what you don't have, meaning up to. So that 10% would equal from 1,000 to 10,000. We would need 9,000 more dollars to make our 10,000, our 10x. So KuCoin would lend us $9,000 for leverage to buy HBAR. Okay, so your 1,000 is now worth 10,000, right? And you can borrow 100% if you wanted, which would be the full 9,000, or you can borrow 50%, which would be 4,500 from KuCoin, plus your $1,000 investment. So your 4,500 plus 1,000 means 50% would be 5,500, right? If you go to 100, they would give you 9,000, and plus your 1,000 means you would have $10,000 worth of USDT coin to purchase and buy. Now, once you borrow the amount that you want, you have what's called debt to ratio, which is right up here. Now, it's very simple. If your debt to ratio exceeds 97%, and it tells you right there on the screen, they will simply say that you have lost 70% of your investment. We're going to close out, meaning liquidate your position, and then we're going to leave you with the 3% or 30% of your money. So if you had $1,000 and you got liquidated at 97%, right? That means they would give you 3% of your money back, which would be $300, and they would take the $700 as you lost that in your trade. So what they do is they say, hey, you made a bad trade and it was so bad you lost 7%. Because when you borrowed the $9,000, right, that's 90% of the 100%, right? So if you have 1,000 and you 10x, right, that means that 10 times 1,000 would be 10,000, right? Your 10% of the 10,000 is your initial investment, which is your 1,000. KuCoin is going to lend you not up to 90% of that money to get you to 10,000. So they're going to lend you 9,000, right? So out of a $10,000, right, because you're 10xing 1,000, right? 1,000 becomes 10,000. Out of the 10,000, you have 1,000 of your money in that, meaning you have 10% of the money. KuCoin is going to lend you 90% of the money to go invest, okay? So remember, you only have 10% of your real money in there, while they're giving you 90% of their money to borrow, right? Now, there are fees for borrowing that money, right? But right now, understand that you only owe 10% of the entire pie, right? When you lose 7% of that, right? That's 70% of your money, right? They consider that you just made a bad trade. They cut you off. They give you 30% of your investment back and say start over, right? They don't let you go completely broke. You made a bad decision, right? So it's kind of like a safety net, but it also kind of sucks because they liquidate you. Now, the problem is that if you don't understand entry, or you don't know what coin you should be getting in or when you should be getting in, then you're always getting yourself into bad trades. And if you don't have a system or a structure that allows you to know when to buy in, how to set a stop loss and move through, then you're going to have an issue, right? So first thing we want to do is, we recommend that when you have $1,000 and you're investing, that you kind of stay around a 75% borrowing range. That way you have an extra 5% of debt to ratio to work with in case you are not understanding how to actually trade. A lot of times, even if you start off at 50% and you cut it in half so that you have a lower debt to ratio, so that way you don't get liquidated and you can start learning how to actually use margins, would be the safest way until you started to figure out like how to set stop loss, how to go in and out. That's the safest way. So start with $1,000, but only borrow 50%, which means you're not going to borrow $9,000. You're going to borrow $4,500, and then plus your $1,000 would mean you'd have $5,500 worth of investment, right? Now, very simple. When you hit borrow, you're going to click off 28 and 14 days, and you're going to stay with a 7 days, right? And then you're just going to hit borrow USDT. And then that will allow you to borrow the money that you're actually wanting to use to go purchase HBAR. Now, the thing about that is once you do that, is every 7 days, if you're still in a trade, which most of the times you're not going to be, the 7 days just renews, and they just go by whatever's currently 7 days. Meaning that your daily interest rate every 24 hours on 7 days is 0.008% on $4,500. Okay? So literally daily you pay 8 cents for borrowing $4,500. It's really minuscule. The interest is really nothing. But where you pay the money is every time that you make a trade, KuCoin is charging a 2% trade fee for entry and exit, right? So to me, I look at it like they're billing like 10% in, 10% out. So I'm always saying to myself, I'm just going to take my profits, I'm going to cut them in half, and I'm going to assume that everything that I'm doing, trading in and out of trades, I'm just going to give half of my profits to fees and just focus on the other half, right? Now what that means is that if I have $1,000 invested and I borrow $4,500, right, or half, right, and that means I have $5,000 to trade, right, and I make 10% on that, okay, and the trade goes up. Let's say we'll just do 1%. Let's say the trade moves 1%. That times 10 would be a 10% gain, right? So let me start over. I have $1,000. I put it into my borrowing account. I borrow $4,000 from KuCoin. So I'm only borrowing half of what they want to borrow. They want to lend me $9,000. I'm only taking $4,000. Plus $4,000 plus my $1,000 means I have $5,000. Now, when the account moves up, or the coin or whatever moves up 1%, right? And what happens is when he moves at 1%, right, which would normally mean for me, if I only had $1,000, that when it moved the 1%, it's like making, $10, right? But if you have it times 5, that means you're making $50. And if you had it times the whole 100% times 10, you would make $100, right? So when I look at that and I say, I normally trade at the 10% like normal traders, right? So you have $1,000, you borrow 9,000, now you have 10,000. You put it on HBAR. HBAR goes up 1%, okay? Now normally if you don't have leverage and you just had your $1,000, it would move up 1%, which basically would mean that you made $1, right? 1%, right? What's 1%? 10 bucks? You'd make 10 bucks. But since you're 10xing it with leverage, your 10 bucks is now $100. So every 1% is $100 because you're doing 1,000 times 10. So that's the difference. Now what I do is say, okay, 1% move, that's 100 bucks. I just cut that in half and say I made 50 bucks. Very simple. Now, I expect every trade to move at least 2%, which means I'm making $100 a trade off 1,000 bucks. Okay? See what I'm saying? After fees, after all the, mistakes you guys make and everything like that, you have to just cut it in half and say, okay, with mistakes, with BS, with very low, movement, what's the guaranteed amount of money can I make, right? The guaranteed amount is if you take 1,000 and you do a 10x. If it moves 2%, that means you made $100, okay? The profit is 200, the fees are half, that means you make 100, okay? Now, if you do one trade a day, that's 100 bucks, okay? And if you have 15 days in 2 weeks, right? 14 days, 2 weeks, and you trade 10 trades, right? So you're not working on the weekends, you're just trading one trade a day and you're waiting for the right trade, you can literally make 100 bucks 10 times in 14 days, right? Well, if you started with 1,000 and you traded 100 bucks on each trade and you put that to the side, and eventually your 1,000 in 10 days becomes 100 times 10, which is another 1,000, right? That means that you have now doubled your money. So you trade with 1,000 and you've made $1,000 in profit in 2 weeks. Repeat the process. Do it again. You make another 1,000 in 2 weeks, right? Now the thing that we teach and educate on when you join the VC Trading Academy is you get videos on a system and a structure, right? This is where people fail to realize, like, guys, it's not about just the indicators telling when to buy and sell. It's about understanding the philosophy on how to actually keep profits and get paid. So when you put 1,000 bucks into this isolated margins and you borrow USDT, your 1,000 is now worth 10,000. And if a coin moves 2%, that means that you have made 20%, right? 2% times 10 is 20%, which means on $1,000, that's $200. Cut that in half, pure profit is 100. The goal is to follow my system and what I teach you and do that 10 times every 14 days, right? So that you double your money. And then with my system, once you double your money in 14 days, you take half of your profit, put it to the side, and then you add the other half to your $1,000 so that now you're trading $1,500, and you repeat the process you just did, which instead of making 1,000, you will now make $1,500 at the end of the next 2 weeks. And you put half of the profit to the side and half of it you're investing. And now you're making $2,500 worth of investments, which double in 2 weeks, which means now you make $2,000 every 2 weeks. Profit half to the side, half back into trading. Now it's $3,000 per 10 trades for 2 weeks, right? So if you do that in 2 months, you are making $3,000 every 2 weeks from $1,000 initial investment with my structure and my teachings, and now you make $6,000 a month trading one trade a day 10 times every 2 weeks. 10 trades every 14 days. That's the system. That's what you guys have to learn. That's what you have to kind of like understand. That's the education. Now, you say to yourself, okay, VC, system is how you make money, okay? Now, what you do is using this system on how to use margins to 5 times your money, right? To 5x your money. That's the key to making the profits you need to make to get to $100,000 in a year. 1K to 100,000 in a year, because you're using a very simple process. You're 5 timesing your money with compound interest, right? Start to get that through your head. right? So here, when we go here to isolated, right? So let's start over. Let's go to margins, right? Very simple. You go to margins, okay? You pick the coin that you want to do margins in. What about the losses? So, and I'll cover the losses in a second. The losses are covered up by even bigger gains. Okay. So once you're in your margin account, you go from cross to isolated. Okay, guys. Click isolated. Let's pick the coin that we want to do. Let's say we want to do H bar. Now, when you have H bar, you hit transfer and you transfer over the money that you want to invest. So put your $1,000 in, your $100 in, whatever it is, confirm it. And once you do that, it will show up as USDT. So transfer USDT into HBAR, and then USDT will end up right here in the total amount. Then your debt to ratio is 0 because you borrowed nothing. So now you just hit borrow, and you're going to take that $100 and go 10 times, which are them giving you $900, which means you're trading $1,000. Or you put 1,000 in and you can borrow up to $9,000. You get rid of the 7 days, you click 100%. When you first start, please click 50% and start with half until you learn how to manage your margins, okay? Then once you borrow the money, right, it will pop up and then you go back to your margins account, and in your margins account, you will now have extra USDT. So if you had $100 in HBAR, right, or $1,000, it would show up right here on a USDT total. It'd be right here. When you borrow and come back, the borrowed money will now be added to your total. So if you have 1,000, you borrow 9,000, that will now say 10,000 USDT. If you have 100, they will give you 900. This will now say 1,000 USDT. Okay, guys? Quant on the move. Yes, Quant's on the move. Correct. Now, that there, your debt to ratio will change. If you borrow 100%, that will now say 90% or 89%, 0.99. But that just means that you borrowed basically 100% of what they were lending you, which was 90% of the 10x, right? 1,000 to 10,000 means you need 9,000. They gave you 90% of your 10x. 100 to 1,000, you borrowed 900. That means you're at 90% of your 10x. You are the other 10%. Now, if you borrow half when you first start off like you're supposed to, then you're not borrowing 90% of it. You're borrowing half of it, right? So which means they're going to bring you down into the 70s and 80% debt to ratios. That gives you more leeway because remember, you only get liquidated if you go above 97%. And you should never have that issue because you should always be stop loss. You should always have your stop markets on, so you should never have the problem of actually being liquidated, okay? Now, once you have that money borrowed in USDT, all you simply do is once you have your money here, this is for going long, okay? I will do a separate video on how to do shorts, but this is for buying long. You would then click here on trade, and now that when you go into KuCoin, this is a normal trading pattern here. They're going to ask you for your basically your trading password and everything that you're doing here. What am I? Spot. Oh, this is new. All right. So what is this? Process, multi-margin, tutorials, repay. And make sure that you don't have auto repay on. Make sure that's not on. That should never be on. All right, so when you come here, you're on your 10x, right? And here's your H bar. Here's your time. You can use charts. You can. I've never seen this before. This is a new setup by KuCoin. The first time I'm seeing this setup. But you're in isolated margins. You're using market, right? So instead of limit, you're going to click on market. Oh, there we go. All right, that makes sense. All right, there we go. So it's normal. It's normal. Sorry, guys. It's normal. So you just make sure when you're on your isolated that you guys are using your what's called market, right? So market is basically when you guys go to market, let me see about clearness. Open orders, advanced orders, margin tutorials, borrowing, transfer. All right, open orders. Okay. So remember when you're in here trading, guys, that you put yourself where you have to always click up top, isolated margins, but you always have to click here. There's limit, market, stop limit, right? You're going to click market. And what market's going to do for you is basically, that's going to be the price of the current market, right? So this is just normal trading right here. So you're just going to click on market, and then you're going to buy what you're going to buy. So when it's time to buy H-bar, you would buy 100%, 50% of what you're buying, or whatever entry you're getting into, and then you would just buy your H-bar. Now, once you buy your H-bar, guys, don't forget that you want to go in here and you hit what's called stop market, and you want to put the price, which is your stop loss. So if I'm entering H-bar and it's currently 0.038, then my stop loss would be 0.0375 or something like that. Whatever it is, you always want to make sure that you put that in there so that you have your stop market price, 0.0035, and then you would say, you know, 100% of what you want to do. But if you're actually doing, if you're buying, then what you would do is, to protect yourself on a stop market, you would click the sell button, and you would just go to the right side where it says sell, and you would put your stop market and say, hey, if this price dips below 0.0375, then sell 100% of my H-bar because I'm out, right? And that is how you set up margins. That's the easiest way to do margins for KuCoin. And then once you purchase, I always suggest that you go back over to your assets into your margin account to see if you actually have purchased it. And how you can tell is when you buy something right here on One Earth, instead of the USDT being down here, it will now become, the total will be up in the coin that you purchased, and that's what your coin, right? Now here's the thing about this, right? And this is where I'm going to show you about shorting, because you see here the liabilities here is USDT is 15 bucks, but you see that's where your liabilities will be at, because you owe back USDT when you repay. And that just simply means that when you buy your H-bar and you sell it for profit, you will hit repay and you will pay back the USDT, whatever the 10x was. If you borrowed 900, you would pay that back. If you borrowed 9,000, you would pay that back if you're getting out of trading that coin, and then you would take your profits, right? So here you would repay back whatever you owed there, and you would go from there. Now, here is a little bit different. You see how the liabilities is up here where it's actually in One Earth? What that means is One Earth is actually in a short position, and we're gonna that's the next video I'm gonna make. I'm gonna show you how to short. But when you do a normal loan of USDT, when you're going long, it will all be inside of the liabilities will be where you owe back, and what you owe back is USDT, and that'll be down here. Okay, you won't have any liabilities in the coin itself, because that's only when you borrow that coin, and we're not borrowing that coin on H-bar, because we're not selling H-bar, and I'll explain that in the shorting video next, guys. But once you borrow your USDT for H-bar and you buy it, it'll say right here that you owe $9,000, and then you just repay it when you're done, guys. So that's a short video on how to use tutorials inside of how to go long, right? And we're going to put that up, and I'm going to do the next video on how to short, so you guys are actually like using it. We're in a recession. We're going to be going through a recession for the next 6-7 months, guys, but people are adapting really quickly to it. Crypto, what up, baby? Crypto's in the house, man. What's going on, man? I am not in Canada, bro. I am in Chicago, and that's where we're at. All right, so now that's that video there. That's for H-bar. I'll make another video on it, man. We'll keep moving them along, guys, but that right there is how you go long. The next video I'm going to make is going to be how to do shorts. All right, guys?